one of the first great sea battles ever recorded, related to the Spanish Navy and their huge battleships, joining in with the French battleships, totaling a number of 132 warships, meeting up against the British Navy, which did not have 132 warships, but half of them they were the British Navy, the other half were the privateers, the blokes who had been raiding the Spanish and the French ships for years, pinching the gold off them to give to the Queen and the King of the day. They entered into battle in the English Channel in 1588 and only 3 ships were sunk. But that's not uncommon with the old sailing ships. Because they were timber, you either had to hit the explosions and blow them up or burn them. So what finally finished off that huge battle was the wind. It blew the ships right, left and centre till most of the Spanish ships ended up going up the eastern coast of England, right round the top of Scotland, down on the eastern seaboard near Ireland, where the Irish got stuck in them and they ran aground, and they ended up with a very depleted armed force when they went home to their countries. We end up with the last great sea battle in 1944 in Surrey Strait. That was the last time that battleships ever had a chance to fight battleships. It was so rare throughout the World War. So today, it's the aircraft carrier. That is the capital ship. So the last great sea battle that we were in, even though we may admit there weren't many battleships in it, it was the last great sea battle ever. It's never happened again, will never happen again, I think so. We'll just take into consideration we've just completed the landing in Leyte Gulf up at Tacloban and Dulag, instructed by General MacArthur, who commands the whole Southwest Pacific, and we're slowly travelling away from the landing scene when we were attacked by some aircraft, and one hit an American cruiser and she was put out of action and was towed away with the support of a destroyer for repairs. And it was after this event that they decided to form up a great battle in the Surrey Strait to defend what we expected were Japanese attacks from the south. And as General MacArthur requested, and our Admiral Kincaid was in charge of the whole fleet, he directed Rear Admiral Oldendorf to arrange the battleships in formation. 6 battleships, 8 cruisers at the top of the strait, with the left flank cruisers and right flank cruisers either side of him, and with at least 27 destroyers divided into many destroyer squadrons. There was one squadron of destroyer kept above the 6 battleships to protect them from any attacks from the north. The others were given virtually free range, so with the 5 of them steaming around in all sorts of places waiting for the Japanese to come up the strait. When we got to Shropshire from England, we picked up the latest radar that they had developed. And just to give you a comparison, they were picking up other ships at about 60 miles. We were picking up at 180 miles away. So we had the top of the line radar equipment on the Shropshire, where the American captains were saying, listen to Shropshire's radar. They didn't say that. Listen to Porthole's radar. Our code name was Porthole. And that was really magnificent, because we picked up the first fleet coming through the strait. Just before this occurred, of course, there was a little bit of action just below the strait, because some of the torpedo boats were stationed there by Oldendorf, were shepherded away by the Japanese destroyer Shigura. So one of the American torpedo boats was so badly damaged, which had been allocated to till the time that the Japanese fleet came into the arena, could not pass their signal on for about half an hour, which they did, I think it was 26 past 12 in the morning. So they were attacked by the torpedo boats. Then there were 39 torpedo boats stationed above, below and in the strait in preparation to do as much damage as they could. Well, they certainly attacked, but their attempts were rather futile in the middle of the night because 10 of them were put out of action. One was finally sunk. The first indication that they came through the strait, and I know that it was our ship, the Shropshire, that picked it up on her radar. At 0003 hours, 3 minutes after 12, a fleet of ships were headed through the strait. We assumed they were Japanese. Started to head up north towards where we were situated. And that was on the 25th of October 1944. And that went on for nearly 2 hours before the first attack occurred at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And remembering it was still fairly dark, even though the sea was calm, all you could really see was the movement of shadowy ships up and down through the narrow straits of Surigao, which were 12 miles at the beginning, 30 miles long and 25 miles at the top. Not only that, there were quite a number of islands one had to contend with at the same time. At this stage, the whole battle fleet, as far as we were concerned, we were 17,000 yards away from the Japanese fleet coming up the strait. We struck home when they got within about 12,000 yards. However, the destroyers got in first and did what you might claim more than half the damage required to eliminate the Japanese. They were absolutely magnificent in their attacks on the Japanese First Fleet. At 0300, Destroyer Squadron 54 came in and fired 27 torpedoes. And 6 of those torpedoes hit the Japanese battleship Fuso. Within a very short time, the battleship exploded, split into 2, and just drifted away with hundreds of men in the water, which we have to assume most must have been killed by the explosion. It did not sink at that particular time. Another destroyer squadron came in at 3:11 in the morning and fired 20 torpedoes, and they made one hit. Another destroyer squadron 24 came in and fired 14 torpedoes, and she made a hit, and the other 3 destroyers of that particular squadron, 2 were sunk and 1 was disabled and left floating. And so what really happened in the end of all that damage that was done, only 3 ships finally pursued up north to attack the American fleet. That was 1 battleship, Yamashiro, 1 heavy cruiser called the Megami, and 1 destroyer called the Segura. They were the only 3 ships left for us to sink. We opened fire at 0351 in the morning. The cruisers, they got in first and attacked the Japanese battleship Yamashiro. We're not too sure at the time about whether they also hit the Megami, because she got very badly damaged during this attack and steamed south. Disabled and was finally sunk by the Japanese themselves, with their crew taken off by a destroyer. Shropshire, which one we like to talk about, of course, didn't open fire to 0356 at 4 minutes to 4. And that delay was caused by somebody leaving one of the hatches open in the gun turret. And now if you leave a gun turret door open when the guns go off, you're liable to do severe damage to all the members within the turret, probably death. So whoever did it, we don't know, but there was a delay of 4 minutes. So finally, everybody opened fire. Shropshire, in her excellent gunfire, for the first time ever in its life, excelled itself with firing off 5 broadsides per minute, which it had never done before. Fired 32 broadsides, of which 16 had direct hits on the Yamashiro and 3 were smothered. The whole area was absolutely smothered with gunfire. Really, the firepower was great. You could hear the shells virtually from far as we were concerned, firing just to the side but over the top of us. So, like cruisers the American had, they tended to rapid fire their guns. Instead of broadsides as we did them, they somehow or other appeared to be doing one gun at a time, very close. And they poured a stream of ammunition into the Japanese. Never-ending stream from their 15 6-inch guns on board their cruisers. Even I can remember seeing that to this day. Some American bloke described it. It looked like a train on the horizon, going across the horizon. Magnificent. Our captain even admitted he thought we were firing at the heavy cruiser. But there's not much difference on a radar set between a heavy cruiser and a battleship. They're both big long ships of over 600 feet long, and all you're getting is a minor shape. It lasted until exactly 9 minutes past 4 when the order of ceasefire was given, and it happened that way. However, once again the old ship Shropshire had just loaded its guns, and son, you never leave any big guns loaded with shells when they're hot. So she fired the last 7 of her 8 guns, and believe it or not, they hit the Yamashiro. So altogether, it was a magnificent battle to witness for what we did for the few ships left to actually fire upon. The destroyer Segura got slightly damaged during this altercation. We're not too sure who hit it, but she was damaged. But she sailed now south, and strange as it may seem, when she passed the second Japanese battleships, which had already decided to turn around and leave the scene, she passed and didn't even tell them what had happened. They just passed the normal naval signals, and off it went into the blue yonder somewhere. The Yamashiro finally sank at 0419, at 10 minutes after the battle ceased. The Fuso, which was already badly damaged and exploded into 2, finally sank at 5 p.m. that day. And it was reported from the Japanese after the war, they think it was the boiler that exploded her, not hitting the ammunition. Because if they'd hit the ammunition, it would have shattered her. Naturally enough, we were most concerned about the number of bodies floating in the water and the debris. In fact, you might say the water was covered with debris and dead bodies, but they disappeared rather quickly. Only 3 Japanese elected to be pulled up by the torpedo boats and saved to live another day, which was pretty amazing. On top of that was estimated the 2 battleships, 1 heavy cruiser, 1 light cruiser, and 4 destroyers, with about 5,000 Japanese died that day. Eventually the second Japanese battle fleet of 7 ships just cruised out of the strait and didn't last many more days before the bombers got them. The destroyers got them.